Whoom, whoom. And me and Lana look at each other, and I go, "It's an earthquake."
Hi, everybody. I'm Todd Dankin, and welcome back to another edition of Becoming the King of Pot. With me, of course, the King of Pot himself, Bruce Perlowin, my handsome cousin. Bruce, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to these stories.
Me too. Me too. So we're in prison now. Well, not we, you, right? You're right. You're in prison now. You're in Pleasanton. You sort of got your routine down. You got your group of friends. Let's talk about the day to day and what happens on a daily, in this federal prison. As I'm sure that, since you're in with other criminals, that shenanigans ensue,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So tell me
Okay.
about the daily life and a couple of the shenanigans that are taking place.
All right. So you wake up in the morning. The first thing you do is, you brush your teeth, go to the bathroom, and then you go to breakfast. Okay. And at breakfast, you meet your girlfriend, your walkie, as we described in last episode,
Yeah.
and you eat together. And then Svetlana worked at Unicor, which is prison industries. She made these. I worked there for a while, 90 days in Unicor. That's right. I did not work I did work 90 days in the kitchen, and you had to work 90 days in Unicor, which is we made these big chests for the military, and that's what, military, what do they call that? The prison industrial complex. Okay.
Right. Right.
So we worked on a machine called the clamp, and it would clamp things together, and you screw it, and you stand it back up, and they were like big credenzas where the military would hang their clothes or their boots or whatever they had. Each person, I guess, had a locker. I well, I was a fanatic worker, and Lana was a working fool. In the first week that we worked the clamp together, we did 110 um, of these pieces of furniture, broke the record of 98. Okay, so we did
Right.
110.
Of course
And
you did. Right.
and she was amazing. I would watch her. She'd go zzz, zzz, with a drill gun, zzz, zzz, take the drill, put it behind her back, and with this hand, zzz, zzz, zzz. She was 100% ambidextrous.
Wait. How did it go?
Okay,
How did the drill go?
zzz, zzz,
Oh, okay.
zzz. That's the
Want
sound
to
of the
make
drill
sure.
drilling screws in, takes it behind her back. Zzz, zzz, zzz. So that goes through. So I'm watching this woman totally at 100% ambidextrous. She could read. She spoke like 7 or 8 languages, and I know that because she was like real secretive. And so someone would be talking in Farsi, let's say, or Spanish, but in this particular case, it was Farsi. I go, "What did they say?" And she would tell, "Oh, she's mad at him because he's been looking at another girl." And then she'd catch me and realize I just realized that she could speak Farsi. So she would always hit me like this in the head. She'd go, "Oh," like that. In fact, the warden called her into the office one time. "Why are you always hitting that guy in the head? Because he deserves it." He goes, "Yeah, you're right. Keep doing it."
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, anyways, and that goes to a story about Svetlana. She's telling me about Nikolai, her ex bodyguard, even though in her case he was heralded as her husband. He was really the bodyguard. And I said, "Why are you so loyal to Nikolai? Him and your son Matthew stole, hundreds of thousands of dollars from us." This is later on after we got out of prison. And he goes, "Because he took a knife for me." I go, "What do you mean he took a knife for you?" He goes, "We were on a Mission Impossible in Yugoslavia or somewhere, and some guy came at me with a knife, and Nikolai jumped in front of him, and he took the knife." I go, "What did you do?" She goes, "I shot the son of a bitch." And she reaches back behind her, goes like this, and she goes, "I shot the son of a bitch." Now, that I know has to be a true story because this woman is totally ambidextrous, and I witnessed the
Right.
ambidextrousness. So she pulls out, I guess she had the guns behind her and shot the guy. So anyway, that's just a little aside because, part of the process of being in prison is, did they really do it and what did they do? Like Steve Kalish, "Did you really bring in 300,000 pounds on a barge?
Right,
Oh my
right,
god." Yeah, "Oh, yeah,
right.
Bruce, we had electric" he was so proud of that. "We had electric, conveyor belts that went right into the back of the truck, we loaded it in." Um, so you get to you dig down into stories, and then they have to weigh, do they how much do they tell you and how much they don't tell you. She could speed read. She didn't want me to know any of this stuff about her because she had said, "I'm not a spy. I'm not," so we
Right,
called her Not Spy. The me and Joe, "Where's the not spy?" And,
right.
but I would watch her read a book, and I would time it, like, every 7 to 10 seconds, she's flipping the page and flipping the page and flipping the page, and then she'd close the book, and I learned this from her. She would look at, the page number, close the book, and remember. I said, how fast can you read?" She goes, "Oh, well, I'm a little slow on this one because it's not my regular language, it's English." And I go,
Right.
"Okay, let me open it." And I would go on page 78, what does it say? She would repeat it word for word. Photographic memory, speed reader, an amazing human. No wonder she was a spy. Okay,
Right,
so,
right.
um,
And when you
back
were reading your books, you were word by word, you weren't speed reading your books?
no, I took a speed reading course. I took, there's a book every college student wants to do. There's a book called, How to Take a Test. So that's why I got straight A's. I got 1 B in 4 years. Everything else was A or A plus or an
Right.
A minus. How to take a test and how to read a book. So those are the 2 things you wanna read when you're going into college because you know how to take a test, you know how to read a book and
Yeah,
get the most
yeah.
out of it. And then I read some speed reading courses, some books from a lady named Arlene Ryle, and basically, that's an interesting story. There's all these sub stories. When Rosa got out of prison, Arlene, she was trying to set me up to do a cocaine deal. And
Mm,
of course, you're the wrong person to do a cocaine deal with. But when
right.
Rosa got out, she did or her husband did do a cocaine deal with this lady, and this lady did get him busted. So, you gotta be careful when you're talking to anybody, other inmates or, you know, people you're corresponding with, um, about what to say and what not to say. So the Russian spy was very secretive, but I caught her doing stuff all the time. All right.
Right, right.
Um, all right. So my routine was, so you go to breakfast with Lana. She goes to Unicor. I go to my job, which is, the rec pile. I would actually go out to the rec pile in the morning, lift all those
Mhm.
weights, put them up, get my workout in, and then come back in and read or study. And
Right.
then the next thing that's happening is lunch. Okay. So now this is an interesting thing. We're always trying to have sex, right? You got 2/3 women. You're in your 30s. You're in great physical condition. You want sex with your walkie. All right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of those instances, all right, since it's part of the routine. This is the
Sure.
lunch routine.
Right.
Joe
Now is
Chagra.
Lana your first girlfriend, or she was just your current girlfriend?
No, she was my first girlfriend.
First one, okay.
Yeah,
So
and
there
she
was
stayed my
no
girlfriend the whole time.
right. Okay,
I
so there's no jealousy or anything like that going on. Good.
A little bit. She told me one time, she goes, "You can't sit next to Ida and Rosa in college." That was at nighttime. We're not at nighttime yet, we're still at lunch. I
Right.
At nighttime, I go, "Why?" She goes, "It's improper behavior." I go, "No, it's not." I mean, Todd, is it improper behavior? You're an American.
No.
Alright,
No.
to Russians, that's improper behavior.
That's funny.
So I told, Ida, I said, "I can't sit next to you and Rosa in college." Lana's upset. She was, like, devastated. "What do you mean you can't sit there?" I mean, it, like, really freaked her out because we were, like, really tight, good friends. We studied together, we worked together. We were going to school together. I taught him Kundalini yoga together, and, that was my little clique. Her, Mikey, Rosa, and Ida. That was, like, our clique, and then, of course, Lana,
Right.
when Lana was off work, but we'll get to the off work as part of the routine. Alright,
Right.
lunchtime. So at lunchtime, you go and you eat. Now in Pleasanton at that time, you had a salad bar and a fruit bar and food that you would die for. Every known vegetable on the planet Earth was on the salad bar. Every fruit was there. It was really, I heard the food got way worse in federal prisons, but when I was there, it was amazing, amazing, great food. So we'd have our food. And on Friday, you'd have chicken, and Lana would always give me her chicken. That's why I used to joke, I go, "I fell in love with you because you gave me your chicken on Friday." I'm not sure she understood American humor. Alright, so anyways.
Yeah, is there any insight into which came first, the chicken or the egg?
So okay, so now it's lunchtime, and so Unicor is off over there, and Joe, my roommate, Joe Chagra, worked in the, Joe was so funny. He was buffed out to the max. He'd go look in the mirror, he goes, "That's scary." He would make muscles. So, anyways, so he worked in the, in a I don't know, in an office. And Unicor would come from Unicor, and they'd walk over here past his office that he worked at, safety division, yeah, the safety office, and then they'd peel off into the chow hall. Well, he had a girlfriend, and when she worked at Unicor, she'd peel off and not go to the chow hall, she'd go to his office. Now, in his office, there was a closet. In that closet, there was a metal cabinet. There was nothing in the metal cabinet, but it was a two-door metal cabinet. You would move the cabinet away. I would, because I was Joe's roommate, and you don't want to tell anyone where your secret place is, because then they stitch you out, and then you lose your secret place. And
Right,
the inmates, when they were building the safety office, built a secret room behind behind that metal cabinet. So you'd move the cabinet. There was a trap door there. So the door would open up. They'd go in. Joe and his girlfriend, I forget her name, would go in there. They'd close the door, and I would move the cabinet back over the secret door. So now, if somebody walked in looking for Joe or looking to see if anyone's in there doing hanky panky, they would see the closet with a metal shelf there. They may open the metal doors. They're not gonna
right,
move and look for a secret
right,
room
right.
behind the wall. So that was we called it motels. So that was their motel. They'd be in there, you know, 35, 40 minutes. I
And how
forgot,
do
I
you
think it was
sneak away? How do you sneak away from a guard and from the guard's watch?
well,
You're supposed to be somewhere, you know?
Joe's worked in the safety office, so he had an office here, and then his boss was in an office here next to him. And, the guy's working, there's a little door there, and this guy is the one that's watching Joe. So you don't need any other guards watching him. So and this guy didn't care. I think he knew that Joe was in there, but he was cool about it.
Right,
Uh,
right.
certain guards were cool, we'll get into that in a second. So, exactly 45 minutes later, I would move the cabinet, they're done making love, they come out, they're dressed, and she would then go to the chow hall. She'd only have, like, 10 minutes before she had to go back to Unicor. So that was, one of the secret ways you could make love, alright? And that was
Do
just
you
for
still call it making love when you're in a closet hidden by a cabinet? Or is
yeah,
it just, like,
I called it making love.
pumping? Right. Right, right.
I mean, yeah, maybe some of the gangsters, the assassins, terrorists, hijackers, Jules's called it fucking, I don't know.
Right,
So,
right, okay. Alright.
I now we learned in Judy's podcast that Judy and David Rhodes used the same place, and I never knew that. I thought that
Oh,
was
fun.
just reserved just for Joe and his girlfriend.
Oh, he probably rented it out, had his little whole side business going on, on the
Or when
side,
Joe
huh?
left or something. I'll have to ask David because I talked to both David and Judy to today, and we'll have
Yeah.
David on. Alright. So, anyway, so that was one of the things. So that's lunch, alright? Then Lana goes back to work, and I go back to reading or studying in my room, alright? Or I would walk around the track, or I'd go running, or I'd be playing tennis until the 4 o'clock count. Unicor gets out, everybody goes back into to mingle, and then you have count time. So at 4 o'clock, everybody has to go in their room, stand up, and they would go and they count, make sure that nobody escaped and everybody was there. I and and after count, then you go to dinner. They would let out the unit 1, then they let out unit 2, then they let out unit 3. They stagger them so everyone's not 600 people in the chow hall at once. And you had a chow hall, and then you had outside the chow hall, you had picnic tables. And Lana and I would sit on the picnic tables outside, except in wintertime when it was too cold. And then they would re-stagger them. They'd start at Unit 2 would go first, then Unit 3, then Unit 1, and then the next day, Unit 3 would go first. So, you staggered who went first, and, I'll tell you an
So
incident.
glad they're keeping it fair like that in prison.
Oh, yeah, otherwise there'd be a riot. You're hungry. You don't want a bunch of angry, hungry men or women, especially the women.
Right. Especially the assassins, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know? Oh, there was one lady in there. She was cute as a friggin' button, but she had cut up a grandmother into pieces and put her in an ice box. So she was a little nuts. She
Hmm,
was crazy, right?
hmm. And do
Um,
do we know why she did that?
'Cause she was crazy,
Oh,
you know? I mean,
well, do we know what the grandmother did to deserve it?
no, it wasn't her grandmother, it was a grandmother. I
Oh,
think they were robbing her. It was her and 2 guys or her and 1 guy, and but all we knew is that she was in there for murder. She cut up a old lady and stuck her in the ice box, or the pieces
I
to her.
gotta tell you, you can't have any witnesses.
Right. So oh, that was a funny story. Okay, so you get an idea of the kind of women are in there, right? You
Yeah,
know
for sure.
I shot the son of a bitch, cut people up, right? Smugglers, the Puerto Rican terrorists, they blew up things. The
Right,
freedom fighters, they would blow up oil, companies, and in one of those instances, why they got so much time is because they actually called and said, "There's a bomb," at Standard Oil, I believe, "There's a bomb in your buildings, evacuate everyone." And they didn't evacuate everyone, the bomb went off, and one person died, and that person's family sued Standard Oil and won. So they were really mad at the Puerto Rican, and they blamed it all on Ida. They said that they found her fingerprint on a bag that the bomb was in, and that was a total fabrication, a lie. Look,
hmm,
I'll tell it like it is, if they're guilty, they're guilty. Yeah, they were guilty, they blew it up, but there was no fingerprint, they just manufactured the evidence.
yeah,
And everyone's out of prison now, years later. So
sure.
anyways,
And wait, let me just ask you a question about that. I mean, did everybody have a story, "I didn't do it"?
yes and no. About 50-50 at this point.
Yeah,
After you're settled in and done your time, you didn't do it while you're fighting your case. You absolutely didn't do it when you're on appeal, and that can be stretched out for years. And
right,
I'm reading all the old smuggling books, and a lot of guys, like Tommy Powell, became jailhouse attorneys, and they got themselves reduced sentences for some very, unique, realities about the law that they discovered nobody else did and helped themselves
right.
get a reduced sentence. Okay, so now where was I? Well, I was at, after let's see, lunch, dinner. Oh, okay, Lon and I sat outside on the picnic. Here's this story.
Right.
So we're outside. This is lunchtime, not dinner. And all of a sudden, we're sitting across from each other, and there's another guy sitting on our table. And all of a sudden, the table starts shaking. And I go, "What the hell's this guy doing kicking the table?" And next thing you know, now remember, we're outside, there's a plate glass window right here. Here's the table, here's the plate glass. All of a sudden, the window starts to breathe. Woom, woom, woom. And me and Lana look at each other, and I go, "It's an earthquake." So I said, "Walk with me." And I took her hand, and I stepped over the planter from the patio that the tables were at into the yard and made sure that nothing could fall on us, no tree, no building. All the inmates come running out of screaming out of the chow hall, just running out of this door, running out of that door, the entrance and the exit. I There's one lady out in the inner yard, and, the and she's running in place, screaming, "Help me, help me." I mean, because what happens in an earthquake, the ground's not supposed to move. That's
Yeah,
just you're
yeah.
solid, but we're, like, out in the ocean.
Mhm.
That ground was, like, going like this, like a swell, right? And that was when the bridge fell down. I don't know if you remember in California,
Sure.
the Bay Bridge
Yeah, yeah,
collapsed.
yeah. Yeah.
That's this earthquake.
Yeah, that was
And
during
so
the World Series.
yeah. And the lights, the big tall poles with lights on, they're going, "Woom, woom, woom." Now we're safe. because I got her way. Nothing can fall on us. Everyone's
Yeah.
screaming. And then they go, everyone go to your units. Right. We're gonna go inside a building, and everyone
Right.
screamed, "No way! Fuck you!" You know,
Oh, that's
and
funny.
no one went to inside of a building. You're not supposed to go in a building in an earthquake,
Right, no, I know, I
and they didn't
know.
know what to do. You know, I mean, how many times you have an earthquake? That was a pretty
I know.
bad
My
one.
first experience with an earthquake, I was living in California, obviously, and I moved out there, after college, and, I was laying in bed, and it was like 7 in the morning. This is the Whittier quake. That was ginormous, right? And I'm in the valley, and I'm laying in bed in the morning, and I feel my bed shaking, and I figure it's just my girlfriend, who's my wife now, but, was, kicking the side of the bed going, get up, you gotta go to work," right? So I open my eyes and she's not there, right? So I have no concept of what an earthquake even is, right? So I open my eyes and I see, I don't know if you remember, but, uh furniture back then, it was a big wooden dresser and had a big wooden thing on top of it, right? And, we had a bunch of shit on top of it, and all that started shaking back and forth, or you would do it, "Woom, woom," right? And then my closet doors started slamming each other, right? So, the funniest part about this whole thing, I'm looking at this, right? And this is all split-second stuff, right? And I don't know what's happening, right? And one of our producers on this show, used to date Linda Blair and was dating her at the time, right? So my stupid me, right? My initial thought is, "Our house is possessed. What is happening here?" Right, and my roommate comes running in, goes, "We're having an earthquake. We're having an earthquake." I'm like, that's what it is." Oh, but it's so funny because you have unless you've lived in one and you've experienced one, you're like, "What the hell is going on?" Because 'Cause you're right. The Earth isn't supposed to be moving, right? And you're like, "What's going on?" But yeah, that was a weird day, and that's funny that you guys so none of the prisoners went back into the jail?
No, and that lady that was running in place, literally running in place like this, not moving, just running in place, and some guy
Uh,
came up and put his arm around her, said, "Calm down." No, we just stayed out in the yard, the inner
yeah.
yard, until it, died down, and then it was safe to go back into your units. But, that was a very, very, you and I grew up in hurricanes, not
Yeah,
earthquakes.
yeah, that's right. I know. Hurricanes, no problem, but earthquakes, what the hell is going on here? Yeah.
So,
Alright, so after lunch, when an earthquake doesn't happen, right?
okay. Alright, so now I'm going back out to the field, the outer field. She goes back to Unicor, I go back out to the field, I run, 3 days a week, 3 to 4 miles, uh, uh, play tennis, go back in my room and I study, I'm reading books, or we would go to the covered rec, me, Mikey, Ide, and Rosa, and study, and we studied a lot. We were
Mhm.
studying for college courses, so we studied
Yeah,
together, and, alright, then you go everyone gets out of Unicor, 3:45 or something like that, 3:30 maybe, and 4 o'clock count comes. After count, you go to the dinner, same kind of rotation thing, and this is when you see that is Mikey and Ide mad at each other because 'cause they're not standing in line together? Or is Bruce and Lana mad at each other because 'cause they're not standing in line, holding hands,
right,
right?
right.
They're, 10 people behind, right? And
Suddenly, the rumor mill begins.
yeah, yep, they're mad, and so you see and you know everything, what's going on with Bruce and Lana, or what's going on with Mikey and Ida, what's going on with Carol and Joe. So you learn about human nature. Uh, Going back to something I said earlier, last podcast, I started talking about the gang of, guys from Hawaii that came, and first there were 7 of them, there's 6 of them, then there's 5 of them, then there's 4. They peel off, they're all with their girlfriends. Who wants to be part of a gang when you could be with your girlfriend? So
Right.
that's what ends up happening. An interesting thing, another thing that happened, a lot of times people are in all-male prisons, right? And then they come into Pleasanton, they're scared to death of a woman. They haven't been around a woman in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and all of a sudden, there's women, and they don't know how to act, and the classic example I described this is a guy named they called him Antenna, and they called him Antenna because he was a black guy, and he had his hair sticking out like this, like dreadlocks, but sticking out like antennas, right? And he wore ripped up, tore up, shirt. He was all buffed out, big guy. And he didn't come out of his room for 3 days. I mean, but sometimes they do that. They're just too scared to come out of the room, and they would, go and, just to go out and eat and come right back and hide. Right, so anyways, about 3 days after Antenna arrives, next thing you know, his hair's slicked back, he's got ironed shirt and pants on, no more tore up things. I mean, the transition was dramatic, more dramatic.
Yeah.
Everyone goes through that, but not as dramatic as Antenna. So there's that stuff going on. So after dinner, me and Lana would eat together. Friday, I'd get her chicken.
And what was dinner like? What was a typical meal,
Same
in
thing, it was
Pleasanton?
delicious. You got the salad bar with every salad on it. Fridays was chicken, and, you have meatloaf one day. They were good meals. They were good.
Mm,
They weren't, like when you're in county jail, it's white bread with cheese and bologna,
right,
that's your
right.
meal. And, it wasn't that. It was really, really good. And a lot of the guys, the inmates were the cooks. So they would
Mm,
make great stuff, in
right.
the kitchen. Um,
Probably
so
from their culture, from wherever they were from, or so on,
Yeah,
right?
sometimes there'd be, Mexican night, there's beans and rice and the Mexican food. Others
Yeah, well,
from
there's that famous scene in Goodfellas where, the guy's carving the garlic, really thin, and they're making the sauce in the prison. Was it like that?
similar, yeah.
Yeah.
It was now, the guys that worked in the kitchen, a lot of them had a side business, like a guy named Solomon. He would take a bunch of eggs, and I don't know what else, and he would then put them in a pan and cook them on top of his light in his bedroom, in his cell. I saw it. It wasn't a cell because there was no bars. You had your door, and,
Right.
um and he would make quiche. Oh my god, it was loaded with cheese and eggs, and then people would buy 'em. You could get a roll of quarters every once a week at
Yeah.
commissary. That's another thing, commissary. You go to commissary, and you buy, whatever you wanna buy, candy bars. I think cigarettes were allowed when I was there, I'm not sure. They eventually banned protein powder, ice cream, and a roll of quarters, a whole bunch of stuff on the menu. So
Right.
you'd use your quarters to pay Solomon, $2 for a slice of quiche, and that was like people would die for that stuff. It was really good.
Right. Right.
Um,
I mean,
so
literally die because we're talking about
no,
prison. Oh,
no.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, I gotta watch it because you don't know what's with this crew, you never
Exactly.
know, right?
Exactly.
Alright, so then after dinner, we would go to the outdoor rec. Oh, no, you had a choice. You go to outdoor rec, but at a certain point, it would have got too dark. They'd say, "Okay," I don't know what they used to say, "Get inside," or something. They'd say some announcement, and there was an
That's
indoor
probably how they
track.
came on the announcer. They were probably like, "Everybody get inside," or something.
Yeah. So the outside track was a half a mile exactly, or a third of a mile exactly. The inside track, I'm not sure what it was, but because it was weavy, wove around all the 3 different dorms. You can Google FCI Pleasanton, you can get an aerial shot of it and see what I'm talking about. And, uh, and then there's a baseball. It was funny, there was a baseball, they played softball all the time, and me and Lana would walk around the track, and the softball field is here, and we'd walk like this way, We'd walk all the way down, go around the softball field, go all the way back up here, and go back around, and go all the way down. And she'd look every time we go by. Remember, she's Russian, not American. She didn't grow up with baseball. And finally, she says, "What is this stupid game? They throw the ball and everybody claps." That's how she interpreted baseball or softball. They throw the ball and everybody claps. So, anyways, after we walked this outdoor, we had to go inside because it's getting too dark, and we walk around the inner courtyard. We walked 10 miles every single day. That was not my exercise routine. That was not tennis, that was not weightlifting, that was not running, that was walking with Lana 2.5 hours nonstop, didn't rest, and back then I timed it. You can walk, 15 minutes per mile. So 2.5 hours is 10 miles. So you get really, really, really good shape. I now that
And are you
was
doing that to be in shape, or you're doing that to pass time, or
past
both?
time and talk to your girlfriend,
Yeah,
you know?
got it.
So,
And are there other activities? Is all of this really just to pass time quicker, or do you really get into a lot of this stuff?
no, there's all kinds of activities, as many activities as they could do. They want you active. They don't want you planning an escape or getting inactive and
Right,
getting into
right.
fights and so so there's the
Or
hobby
raping and
shop.
murdering, right.
Yeah, rape, pillage, and plunder, alright? And it could be
Exactly.
the girls going, "Oh, I gotta talk about that." One of the funny instances, and I'll get back to the hobby shop, was the Baba incident. You remember the Baba incident? Lorraine
No.
Baba. Okay, she
Oh,
cut
sure,
up
bob it. Yeah,
Baba,
sure.
okay. She
I
were
have a really funny story about that, but go ahead.
Okay, so for those that don't know the Bobbitt story, Lorraine Bobbitt got mad at her boyfriend and cut his dick off and threw it out the window. Isn't that the story, Todd?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
And then
and
he went down and grabbed it and went to the emergency room. Yeah.
okay, so that's a now you can imagine 2/3 women, rough, tough women. They were walking on cloud 9, and the guys are tiptoeing around walking on eggshells. And Lana started her say, "You better be careful. I'm gonna cut your balls off and send them to your mother, Western Union." You know, the women there were just they were just thrilled. What a novel idea. So if you
Right.
anyone who was arguing at that time, and you have your normal arguments, everyone's arguing and fighting, not, you know, the same as normal, all right? Um, but the people get in arguments, "I'm gonna cut your dick off." You know, "I'm gonna do a bobbit on you." And these women would
Right.
do it.
Right, right, right.
So
Yeah, those are the women that would do it. I think Lorraine Bobbitt was just went nuts, out of had a jealous rage, you know?
yeah, I don't know why, but all I know is that the reaction in prison with 2/3 aggressive, assertive women, it was not good for us guys.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for
Alright,
sure.
so the hobby shop, that was a people would make all kinds of things, with, uh, vases and woodworking stuff, but on
Like
top
ceramics and stuff like that?
yeah, yeah, ceramics, and on top of it was a little off it was inside a room, then there was an office, and on top of the office was one of our hotels. So, for a couple times, Barrett is that was the guard's name, he would let us at lunchtime, instead of going to lunch, we go to the hobby shop and go up on top and make love up there, alright? So that was another hotel, but that wasn't reserved just for me and Lana, and by the way, let me tell you what I told his name is Willard Barrett, and he said he'll be on our podcast and tell some stories that I didn't know because it was all secret. Hush, hush. You didn't tell anyone where your secret spot is because you didn't want them to use it, even if it's your best friend, because somehow it'll get out and you could get busted or you lose the spot. The
Right,
police know
sure.
where it is. And you
Right.
don't want to lose your sex spot. Okay. So, anyways,
Good tip.
so I told Barrett, I said, and then my other spot was that, and that was the best spot where did I talk about this in a previous episode? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
It's, I would do the movie projector. That was my job. And the
Yeah.
movie projector would be, all these people would sitting on chairs watching a movie. Well, Barrett would let us pull the accordion door, sliding doors shut. There's a room behind that. It was actually the chapel. And we'd sneak in there, and during the entire movie, we'd be making love. And then at the end of the movie, he said, "Okay, it's all clear." And I'd let her out, and then I'd come out, and we'd go to the bathroom because everybody waiting in line to see the next movie would, they were waiting in line for an hour. They had to go to the bathroom. They rushed into the bathroom, and then me and Lana would, no, I'm in there cleaning up the chairs. That was my job. But she'd come out of the bathroom just like she was waiting in line and go out with, other people that rushed in there and then came out. So
Right.
that was our spot. I said, "Barrett, I'll pay you $50,000 to let me and Lana use the hobby shop and or the behind the curtains." And he said, "Okay." That was our deal. Never paid him 50,000. After I got out of prison, I started a publicly traded company. I started the first publicly traded company in the pot stocks called Medical Marijuana Inc. with Don Steinberg. I and, I gave him $50,000 of stock. I tracked him down, found him, says, "Barrett, I'm giving you the $50,000 of stock." He cashed the stock out. He put his daughter through college and bought her a new car. And then
Wow.
6 months later, he goes, I put her through college with that money you gave me, and I bought her a new car. Just no she has no, she's not grateful at all." I go, "Barrett, welcome to parenting."
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Exactly.
as I'm sure you know, because 'cause I've been to your house with you and your daughter, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, they turn for those that don't know who have beautiful, sweet little daughters, when they turn 13, they will turn on you, okay?
They definitely do. Yeah.
But
They
then when
come
they get
back, though.
older, yeah,
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
come
they come
back and
back.
it's everything's wonderful and you get to live happily ever after.
That's right.
Alright, so these are I mean, those are the exciting moments, is the exciting moments is, getting to make love in prison with a woman. I mean,
Yeah.
and being and
'Cause you
genuinely
were
being
used
in
to just doing
love.
that with men up to that point.
No. No. Yeah, again, that there is no predatory homosexual sex because there's plenty of gay people, um, so
Well, there is now, so there wasn't back then.
not in the medium security, no. Because
Yeah.
if there's a problem medium security and you get in trouble, you get shipped to maximum security, and there's plenty
Uh,
of gay guys that, and that will have have a gay relationship. You don't need to go after somebody who's straight,
yeah.
and they don't. At least in my experience in county jails, it never happened to me. In Texarkana, it never happened, and nor did I see it happening, you
Mm,
know? That's maximum security when you see all these horrible things that go down, or state prisons, which are not
right.
they're different than feds.
Got it.
So
Got it. So
now we have
what were nights like? So you're after dinner, you have your after dinner activity, whatever that is. And then what are nights like and when is lights out?
most of my nights, not most, 3 nights a week were in school. So I go to class for an hour. I remember one time, I'll tell you a funny story. Um, and then I go out and walk with Lana, until it was I think it was 8 o'clock count. I'm not sure, 10 o'clock count. No, I think at 8 o'clock. They go count time, and everybody go back to their units, again, stand up. They come by and count, make sure nobody's escaped again, and then you're done. Now you have to hang out in your dorm. And you have your rooms, and then you have the common area, big common area. And every time you read a book and you finished a book, you'd put it down in the common area on a table so somebody who wanted to read that book could do that. So you had the bookmobile and you had other people just dropping off books that they're done reading. They don't want to read anymore. Um, I mostly studied and read after count time. I
Right.
didn't need to mingle. I mean, you could do there's a laundry room, you could do your laundry, showers, you take a shower, you could make a phone call, you put your quarters in the phone booth or call collect, I think. No, you called collect. Um, so sometimes I make my phone calls. A lot of times I made phone calls and because you're still sort of running the world or a world or some part of your world out there. Like when I would call my assistant, my sister-in-law and tell her, write a letter to this person, write this, order this, get me this book, send Aubrey this, my son, or send Jeremy this. So she was like a secretary. So you'd have to call out. But mostly for me it was reading at that time. And then you go to sleep. And I tried as hard as I could to get less than 8 hours of sleep so I could read more. And I couldn't. I needed that 8 hours. And so you're getting a lot of good rest. The most common thing people say in prison is, "This has added 10 years to my life." That's
Added 10 years.
added 10 years to my life, and it's true. You get into that kind of routine, no stress, no electric bill, no, in my case, no smuggling, no boat payments, no buying boats, no renting boats, no laundering money all over the world, running an empire with 200 employees, building this giant house up in Ukiah with mudslides, um, so none of that. exist. And so it takes a few years to and the other thing about being in prison is really cool. You don't forget anything. Now at 75, you start forgetting some things. Um, but with these podcasts, I remember, I get forced to remember everything. But the point is, you reflect on life. And when you go away for a weekend, you reflect on life, right? You say, am I doing things right? When you go away for a 2-week vacation or a 1-week vacation, you reflect on life and you think about stuff. Am I doing this right? Should I change my job? Whatever you're thinking of. But when you're in prison for 6 months, a year, 2 years, you don't forget anything that happened. You're reflecting on it and reflecting on certain things for 2 years later and 3 years later and 4 years later gives you a keen insight that you don't get ever because 'cause you're too busy living life to reflect on life, alright?
Mhm.
Um, so, that was another cool thing that happened in prison. Another cool thing, let's see some fun stories. Hotels, alright. I worked in the children's center, and what that was when somebody would come, a male and, a wife or a husband would come visit their married partner in prison, you're in this big room, and you're sitting on tables, and you're talking to each other, and if you bring the children could hang out with the parents for a while, and if the parents wanna talk personal stuff or, "I'm gonna be in here for life," or, you know, without the children, they'd send them to the children's center, which was right next to the visiting room. I worked at a children's center, so when Rose's kids came, a day in Hiro, I taught them tumbling, and we had it was just a lot of fun, or we'd work with them, and we had to take courses. We had to read the books, of Parent PET, Parent Effectiveness Training, 3 volumes, which is a great book for any parent. Nobody teaches you how to be a parent. You think you know because of the way
You
your
just wing
parents
it.
were.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. Go read Parent Effectiveness Training. I think they've condensed it to 1 volume and tells you there's 3 kinds of parenting lifestyles. Your average, your kid's gonna turn out this way if you do this style, this way if you do this style, statistically, not, not 100% of the time. So we read all that, we studied about kids, and we also studied about children of incarcerated parents. That's
Hmm.
a devastating effect on the child. When a child gets their parents taken away from 'em, they don't say like Matthew, okay? Matthew is Svetlana's son. At 7 or 8, she was raided by the FBI, and his mother and father were arrested. Matthew or any other child in that circumstances see it as being abandoned. They don't rationalize, "Oh,
Sure.
she was a spy, she was working for her country." No, they abandoned me. So the whole psychological impact of children of incarcerated parents is devastating, and Matthew
Sure.
turned out to be a freaking sociopath, stole money from his mother, from his father, from me,
Mhm.
um, and he's still stealing money from people, alright? And,
Well,
and
what happened with your kids?
same thing, but the difference with my kids is I tried and be there as much as possible. One, I would in prison, my job paid 11 cents an hour, so you don't make a lot of money, but once a month, I would send both Aubrey and Jeremy $5 child support. So at least they know that there's something that I haven't forgotten them, abandoned them, I'm making an effort, and every Monday, I would write the Monday letter to Aubrey, and every Tuesday, I would write the Tuesday letter to Jeremy, and I would number them. So I think I was up to, like, the Monday and Tuesday letter number 365,
Oh,
when
wow.
I got out of prison. So every week, they got a letter from their dad, and that includes pictures, includes articles. I would say something like, "Dear Aubrey the empathic," and then I do, "Dear Jeremy the empathic. Do you know what the word empathic means?" And I'm expanding their vocabulary and trying to teach them big words, that and I did that every single week for all those weeks, so at least they knew. Now, did it change the fact that I abandoned them? It doesn't matter. Some kids will say, "Well, if you loved me, you wouldn't have been a smuggler, or you wouldn't have robbed a bank, or you wouldn't have,
Sure. Right.
did this."
Mhm.
Um, so that's how they rationalize it. So we learned all that in the children's center. Okay, so now back to the visiting room. So now you have a guy a guy visiting his wife in prison.
Mhm.
Now let's reverse it. A woman visiting her, okay, her husband in prison, and they're sitting there talking,
Mhm.
and the guy who's in prison says, "You see, David Rhodes over there visiting his wife? Yeah. Well, his girlfriend, Judy, is visiting somebody, and they're watching each other because Judy wants to see if David's going to kiss his wife because she's going to be jealous, right? Because in prison they're a couple, and vice versa. David's looking at Judy. Is he holding hands with her ex husband And this is going on with all the couples in there. You know?
Right,
And
right,
so
right.
and the guy says so the wife says to the guy after he points it out, goes, "Well, do you have a girlfriend in here?" "Oh, no, not me." He just blew it because they all did, alright?
Sure, sure. That's funny.
And I was divorced so I could be with Lana. Becky and I were divorced, I don't know, 6 months, a year before I went to jail.
Right.
Um, so that was a scene that was hysterical. Watching the couples and I'd sit there, when Becky would come and visit. Um, and I'd watch all these couples, I would tell Becky what's going on because it didn't matter with us because we were, she was already remarried
Yeah.
and she knew I had a girlfriend who was a Russian spy. So that was hysterical. But all right, so now next door is the Children's Center. One last quick story. Again, the hotels are very important. One by one, we were sneaking in 2x4s into the Children's Center from Unicorp. They bring a 2x4, and I would take it into the bathroom, up through the ceiling, across the ceiling, into the rafters, and lay it down. All right, so lay the next one, lay the next one, and I couldn't nail them down, so I had to tie them down with the rope, and that became a bed up there, and that's where Mikey and Day would go up there and they would make love up there, I think. I'm pretty sure. I'm not
They weren't
100% sure.
fucking, they were making love?
Yeah, they were making love. Yeah.
Okay.
Day was a class act, and Mikey was a cool guy. So that was another apartment. Then Carol, one time, there's a big box out in the rec yard in the weight pile. I mean, huge box like a coffin, and that's where you put the weights, right? Well, we'd empty the weights, and Carol would jump in there with her boyfriend, and Joe, and they'd have sex. And one time said she was in there, and these big red ants started biting her, and
Oh my god.
she could hear the guard talking, and she couldn't get out, she couldn't move, and nobody could let her out because the guard was right there. So she got
Right.
bit up by ants, and then finally the guard
Oy.
left, and they let her out. Another time, Patty Love, who is Brother Love who's a big smuggling from the Zion Coptic Church down in Jamaica, for those who remember that story. Um, there's 3 girls pulling the chicken off of the chicken things to make chicken soup, for the next day.
Mhm.
And they're in the kitchen doing that on a table, and here comes Patty Love falling right through the roof, right onto their table of chicken, butt naked, except for
So
one
funny.
shoe. She had one shoe. Carol's telling me this story. So what they did, they took aprons and they wrapped got her dressed in some aprons, and the 3 girls that were pulling the chicken off the chicken bones circled her and walked her into the women's unit so she could get dressed and not get
Right.
caught. Um,
That's funny.
Another
So
story, what
it's almost like a summer camp with, all these relationships, all these shenanigans, all of these, sort of cliques that form. Sounds a bit like summer camp, and, we're gonna learn more about Bruce's summer camp next week as we delve into his life as a prisoner in Pleasanton, California, one of only 2 co-ed prisons, in the country at that time, and now has, since been closed. But, more prison stories on next week's edition. Anything you wanna end with, Bruce?
No, we're gonna try and get as many of these other stories with the real prisoners that were in prison with me, to tell some of the stories because they were. I mean, look, there was a lot of tragedy there, being away from your family, especially for the women, but mostly it was for me hysterically funny. So
Yeah.
we'll get into some of those funny stories the next episode with the people that
Awesome.
were there.
Awesome. Well, he is the king of pot. He's Bruce Perlowin. I'm Todd Dankin, and I am his cousin. And this is Becoming the King of Pot. Make sure you like and subscribe right here on YouTube. And if you're looking for some merch, make sure you check out becomingtkop.com, and you can get t-shirts and hats and memorabilia and some King of Pot posters and pre-rolls and all kinds of cool stuff. So make sure you check that out. Once again, I'm Todd Dankin. This is Becoming the King of Pots, and we'll see you next time.